Okay, I have 7 o'clock. I'd like to bring the May 14th, 2024 Planning Board meeting to order. Karen, roll call, please.
Ms. Claudia Vogan.
Here.
Mr. Jim Callahan.
Here.
Mr. Kevin Donovan.
Here.
Mr. Dave Edmonds.
Here.
Ms. Carolyn Turner.
Here.
Mr. Mike Francesca, absent. Chair Bob Doherty.
Here. Before this meeting starts, I'd like to please remind everybody to please silence your cell phones and note that this meeting is being recorded. We have two A&Rs. The first one we'll address is the one that was just given, well, we'll do the one that was just given to us tonight, 1113 Richmond Ave. Any questions? Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Board members, for the record, Attorney James Giuliano Law Group, 607 Main Street in Woburn. This is one that Attorney Salvati was submitting. Actually, I was representing the buyers in the transaction a year ago today that we were starting this process. The delay was held up in the land court. As you guys know, that an A&R lot or lots that are part of the registered land system, unfortunately, have to go to the land court. The land court is, in my experience of the last year or two, probably 6, 8, 12 months behind, and that's what we're getting for turnover for the land court to approve these plans. They're looking for particulars that, in my opinion, are unnecessary, but it's irrelevant what I think. But so we finally got this approved from the land court. We are changing the lot lines. We created 3 lots in total. All have frontage on Richmond, and all have sufficient area, so on and so forth. So there is a house on one of the lots. The other lots, to my knowledge, are vacant and will be built upon, but they are and do have sufficient frontage on Richmond. So I will certainly take any questions based on that.
Any questions? Seeing none. Mr. Director, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, I do. Planning staff recommends endorsement of this plan as one not requiring approval under the subdivision control law. There are some extra comments in the staff report having to do with zoning, potential zoning violations, and there's a shed on the property. That's not under the purview of the planning board. The planning board's endorsement of an A&R plan is strictly for recording purposes only. Any zoning violations, those are the jurisdiction of the building commissioner to determine at the time of building permit being applied for. So I do recommend planning board endorsement of this plan.
So moved.
Motion by Dave to accept the director's recommendation. Seconded by
Second.
Claudia. All those in favor? 6-0 carries.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Second one under subdivision approval not required, 215 New Boston / 225 Merrimack.
Good evening. For the record, Joseph Tabby, Woburn and Redmond, 600 Unicorn Park Drive in Woburn, here on behalf of the applicant. So this A&R plan is an updated A&R plan for property at 216 New Boston Street and 225 Merrimack Street. The updated plan is similar to the plan that the board endorsed on August 3rd of 2022, which is recorded with the Registry of Deeds as Plan Number 700 of 2022. The only change from the 2022 plan are the following. The property that's subject to the A&R plan is all registered land. There was a small parcel of land on the south side of Lot 70 that was erroneously omitted in 2022. And this new plan, updated plan, shows 3 easement areas on Lot 70. Those are the only changes.
Any questions? Seeing none. Mr. Director, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, they do, sir. Staff recommends that the board endorse the submitted consolidation and division plan as one not requiring approval under the subdivision control law, and to also grant the requested waiver for the locust plan scale. I have a further note here. Please recognize that under the planning board signature block on the subject plan, the requisite note is inscribed, providing for the planning board endorsement of the plan for recording purposes only.
Okay, we have a recommendation from Mr. Director.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Claudia, second by Carolyn. All those in favor? 6-0 carries.
Thank you.
Okay, up next under public hearing, definitive subdivision Cliffside Terrace.
Okay, you want to put up the layout plan, you think? Okay, thanks. For the record, Joseph Tabby, I'm an attorney with the law firm of Woburn and Redmond, 500 Unicorn Park Drive in Woburn. With me is Carlton Quinn of Allen in Major. So the applicant has filed an application with the board seeking approval of the definitive subdivision plan that's on the screen, entitled Definitive Subdivision Plan Cliffside Terrace Extension, including the following lots: tax map lots 60-11-72, 60-11-73, 60-11-74, 0, 1, and 4 Cliffside Terrace. On the plan was completed by Allen and Major, dated March 1 of 2024. The proposed plan proposes to create 7 lots, all having the required frontage, and lot sizes as follows: 12,020 square feet for Lot 1A, 12,055 square feet for Lot B, 13,800 square feet for Lot 1C, 15,660 square feet for Lot 1D, 26,056 square feet for Lot 1E, 15,321 square feet for Lot 1F, and 17,000 square feet for Lot 1G. In addition, the following waivers have been requested: waiver from the minimum planting strip width, waiver from the minimum radius at intersection, waiver from the minimum right-of-way width, and waiver from sidewalk on both sides of the way. Comments, as you know, have been received from the following department heads. 1, Jay Duran, DPW Superintendent. His comments, I'm just going to generally summarize the comments, which were, pretty in-depth in his memorandum. But during the preliminary stage, there was a concern about the grade in the roadway, and has now been reduced to 8%, which is the maximum allowed under the regulations, and as Mr. Duran indicated, necessary given the steep topography of the lot. There are no issues with water, sewer, drain. In summary, what Mr. Duran indicated, that he's generally satisfied with the redesign, has concerns on some of the issues raised by engineering, and would like to schedule a site meeting to review the proposed grade change. Greg Rayom, senior engineer in the engineering department, made a number of comments, very in-depth report again. I'm only going to sort of summarize some of his comments. He talked about right-of-way width, turning radius, sidewalks, which we've all requested waivers from. He stated there was a minor deviation from 1% to 1.44% for roadway grading, which would require an additional waiver. We'll add that to our list of requested waivers. In addition, he indicated Garfield Avenue has sufficient capacity for the additional dwelling in terms of sewerage. Water, he's requested review by the Water Department and Fire Department. As to drains, he acknowledges receipt of a stormwater management report with calculations and mitigation measures. In terms of gas, he suggested that the proposed gas main needs to be relocated. Tom Quinn, Building Commissioner, has reviewed the lots in terms of dimensional regulations. The lots meet all of the dimensional regulations in terms of frontage and lot size. When we're ready to put houses on the lots during the building permit process, we'll then review the side yard and rear yard setbacks with him. Police Department has no issues with the plan. There are no wetlands involved, so Conservation Commission is not involved. Deputy Fire Chief George Poole, in his memorandum, stated that the fire hydrant locations and fire truck turning radius are acceptable, and we meet the recommendation of the prior plan review from 2023, and Jack Freilich from the Board of Health had no comments on the plan. So what I'd like to do at this time is introduce Carlton Quinn from Allen & Major, who will go through the proposed plan and address some of the comments as well as reviewing the requested waivers. So, Carlton.
Good evening, Carlton Quinn with Allen & Major Associates. I'm just going to flip through the plans here and stop at some points. Here's the existing conditions plan of the Garfield extension. Currently, there's 2 houses at the top of the hill, and then 2 houses at the bottom of the hill, which actually should have frontage on Garfield Ave, as this right-of-way is actually owned by the rear property currently. Here's just a locus map showing the location of the subdivision with the 300-foot abutters line shown around it. This is just the proposed lotting plan for the lots. The hatches you'll see here are easements that would be required for the site's drainage and would be recorded as part of the housing association, that the drainage would be maintained per the housing association. This is a grading and drainage plan. The minimum slope required, the waiver we're seeking for the 1% slope is for the first 30 feet of the right-of-way. 1% is noted as the maximum slope for this area. As an engineering guideline, you would never have a slope less than 1% in a pavement area or it causes flooding. So my minimum design grade is typically 1.5. It's 1.44 at this location to try to meet the existing grades of these 2 driveways that are here. I think Greg reiterated the point that it's a minimum deviation from the standards, but I would suggest that the standard is actually the absolute minimum you would do, not the maximum. But in any case, I don't think it's a huge engineering concern for that waiver. The sidewalk waiver we requested because there's an existing 40-foot right-of-way here, and to get the required sidewalks would require kind of a 50-foot right-of-way, but due to the existing constraints, we requested a 40-foot right-of-way, and thus some of the stuff in the inside got slimmed down, such as the pavement width, the sidewalks, and the landscape bed. And we are going to provide, adequate landscape bed. It's just going to be provided within an easement inside the properties instead of in the right-of-way. So this is just kind of showing the extent of the disturbance during the construction of the right-of-way. The stormwater system here and here to try to collect everything on the top of the hill, And then we have 2 stormwater systems at the bottom of the hill to collect any runoff at the bottom of the slope before it runs into the existing right-of-way in Garfield Ave. Here's just the layout showing 40-foot right-of-way, 26-foot pavement width, with a 4-foot sidewalk and a 5-foot landscape strip for the full length of it. We are going to rebuild the entire cliffside extension in this new one. So we brought it down from our property lines here all the way down to the right-of-way. The radiuses, you'll see, we required a waiver for this. Again, it's kind of due to the 40-foot existing right-of-way. We put in the maximum radiuses we could without encroaching onto the abutter's property. We had spoken with engineering about putting in a 24-foot width right-of-way in which we could probably get the adequate radiuses, but he didn't make a determination one way or the other, but it sounded like everyone was more comfortable with the wider right-of-way with some smaller radiuses. We did do a fire truck turning analysis, which is later on the plan set, and can show that the fire truck can easily navigate this without stopping, in one forward motion coming in and out, and those radiuses aren't a hindrance to the fire truck. This is a more detailed drainage plan showing some catch basins in the road, a water quality device to remove the sediment. The infiltration systems are provided on the private properties with an easement that'll include it in the housing association so that it be properly maintained. And again, a discharge down to these systems down here. We did provide a stormwater analysis to show that we're reducing the rates of water coming off as well as the volumes of water coming off, so that we should have mitigate all of our disturbances on site. And when we came in for the planning, it was noted that we should assume all these lots are developed. So this stormwater analysis is assuming that all these lots are developed with about 35% impervious and not just a natural wooded land. So we did pre-plan the drainage for the developed parcels. This is your utility plan showing that we looped the water up and down the road. We've provided the water gates per standard water department requirements in the city of Woburn. They did ask an engineer that we move this gas main into the sidewalk and keep it out of the right-of-way. That's a revision we're happy to make or condition. We do show the sewer and electric coming up here. There's a hydrant up at the top of the site and halfway down the site, as was recommended in the preliminary comments that we had provided. There's an analysis showing the fire truck coming up and around the site without clipping the sidewalk anywhere. Here's a profile. These are the existing grades here you can see in the dashed line that go way up here. And in our preliminary, we had provided a design that showed a 10% slope up here, which is the maximum allowed per the state fire code. We got some feedback from DPW that preferred at 8%, which is allowable per the subdivision regulations. So we did lower this steep slope here from 10% to 8% to meet the local subdivision regulations. This is just one showing the sewer. The other one showed some other utilities because it was kind of messy, so we separated the drainage and the sewer profiles for the road. These are just some standard construction details. We'll flip through to the landscaping. Here's the proposed landscaping within the right-of-way. You can see these trees are proposed within the private developments, and we will have a landscape easement for these trees. I believe it was noted that we are 2 trees shy of the requirement. We will happily add those 2 trees to the plan or have them conditioned however you see fit. Just some landscape details, and that's the end of the plan set. Thank you.
Any questions? Jim?
Question is, how much ledge is being pulled off this site?
I don't have a volume of ledge, but at the biggest cut, it's about 12 feet of cut of which I don't know how much of that is ledge, but I'd assume there'd be, some substantial amount of ledge within that 12-foot cut.
The updates from this drawing here to the prior set have encompassed most of the concerns in my mind, and I'm thankful for that. I do have reservations about the amount of ledge coming out of there, how it's gonna be managed, and I think Mr. Duran addressed that in his letter. I think that's gonna need a lot of attention, and I see a lot of folks here in the gallery today, and they probably have the same concerns. I think that I would be looking for you folks to come up with a plan, a schedule of activities such that when you're gonna commence construction and when activities take place and how long the actual construction is gonna last, which I envision it to be longer than the 2-year period. Right, so for us, in my opinion, it's a whole lot easier to sit here in front of, other city residents and give them an accurate timeline other than the 2-year standard approval we give with developments that are a little bit more sensitive and aggressive in the area neighborhoods. But that's really just what I had to say.
Oh, it's a good suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else? Claudia?
Is this going to be a public street?
Yes.
Okay, so you're looking to construct a way that would be accepted as a public way?
Correct,
that right?
yes. We'll have a homeowners association for purposes of maintaining the drainage structures.
Okay, the drainage only, but this would be for example, a plow job for the DPW in winter, should we ever get snow again?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you, I'm set.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing no other questions?
Actually, I do have one more question.
Please, Claudia.
So, on the ledge question, it does strike me that the neighbors' concerns, based on other subdivisions in this sort of category, will be centered around blasting. Do you have an ability today to give us a sense of what your blasting contractor is going to be working with? I guess this is a variant of Jim's question, but more to the point of, when, how long, how do you get rid of the ledge? Do you see my point? I mean, these are all things we've gone over in other subdivisions that I'm going to anticipate the neighbors are going to want to know. And the question is, can they know that tonight? And if not, when?
Yeah, I don't think we have an answer for you tonight, but
Okay.
by the next meeting, we'll have an answer for you.
Okay. Are you far enough along in the process to at least have explored with, for example, blasting contractors and things of this nature that could provide more specifics that, being experienced, Joe, in this, you would know that this is going to be a big issue in the approval?
Yeah, I don't think we haven't talked to anyone yet. have
No.
we? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm all set.
Thank you, Claudia.
I just wanted to comment in regards to the city engineer commenting for the board, and I'll ask the applicant. It doesn't appear that you actually know at this point the depth of bedrock, or I would assume you're going to hit bedrock, but that hasn't been determined. Is that correct?
Correct. No, we've done some stormwater test bits, for the stormwater, and we found ledge. But the site is pretty big. We haven't done an extensive boring or under ledge exploratory program.
Yeah. The only other comment I have, and Claudia, I think, was alluding to it. This is going to be a public way, so the maximum grade allowed for a roadway in Woburn is 8%. Perhaps if it was a private way and it wasn't a worry of the city plowing, it would be a private contractor and the homeowners association taking care of it. The greater the grade of the right-of-way, the less impact in the grades of blasting and the steep grades of the associated slopes. So there wouldn't be as much blasting if there is going to be, and there wouldn't be as much hauling off of material, if the city was willing to work with a higher grade of the roadway. I mean, years ago, the maximum grade used to be 10%. And we allowed, many of those, and that's going back years ago. I think at one point, the maximum grade for a residential subdivision was 7%, and now it is established at 8%. Just so everybody realizes, when you look at a subdivision plan, 8% looks like an expert ski slope. It's far from it. An 8% grade is not a severe grade of a roadway. But the plans make it look like that. So you really have to go out and physically see 7% versus 8%, 10%. For instance, Blueberry Hill Road, which is the steepest road in Woburn, that has a maximum grade of 17%. Hilltop Terrace is another example of a very steep roadway in Woburn, and that probably nears a 15 or 16% grade. So there are steeply graded roadways throughout Woburn. Russell Street's another one. I mean, I'm sure everybody in this room travels that at one point or another. That's greater than an 8% grade. But, and it's a major roadway. But they are going out to a flat area leading out to Garfield Avenue. I'm just saying all of this because one way to reduce the amount of impact with the grades associated with the abutting properties and the amount of blasting, again, if there is going to be blasting, is to increase the grade of the roadway. So, and that therefore lessens the grade of the lots abutting the roadway too. So it's just one way to think about it.
Mr. Chair, through the chair.
But
This is a discussion that we've had before in other contexts.
Yeah.
And the only way for us to make an informed choice is to hear from the neighbors, hear from the applicant, and go and see it ourselves. And so the suggestion in I believe the engineer's comments about staking the proposed grades and having a site visit is honestly the best choice, I think, because otherwise we'll not really have the ability to make any sort of trade-offs in our mind as to pros and cons of various grades. So not to telegraph anything, but just to say that seems like a very sensible choice to give everyone a chance to look at it.
And through the chair, I just want to make a comment that both Greg Rio in the engineering department as well as the superintendent of public works, Duran, in my opinion, gave an excellent report to the board for this initial public hearing. And it was the superintendent who did recommend to the board to have a site inspection so that we will have a chance to see for ourselves, what these grades are all about for this particular subdivision.
Oh, through the chair, I see that's 100% right, that it is the superintendent of DPW that made that excellent suggestion. So I certainly give him the props for that.
no more comments from the board at this moment. This is a public hearing, so I will invite anybody from the public to come up and speak in regards to this particular matter. That would be, yes, what we would like. And please state your name and address.
I'm Heather Jones at 118 Garfield. I'm in a butter to what would be Lot 1G, I think. So I guess my concerns are twofold. One is construction, and then the other is after we have 7 new homes built. With construction, obviously drainage, because I'm right next to 1G, and that's where it looks like the majority of the drainage is going to be put. The blasting, of course, is a concern. The impact on the wildlife with all those trees being cut down. I know we've got coyotes, we've got a whole bunch of stuff back there. the impact that it's going to have on them. The air quality, when it does blast, I know that the folks up in North Woburn with the Ledges project had a really hard time with the air quality during blasting. My other concern is more selfish, is my son is autistic and he has sensory processing disorder and he wears headphones all day at school because it's so loud. I really don't want to see him wearing headphones when he's home. My other concern is after the homes are built, we'll have 7 4-bedroom homes, which I'm assuming is going to be at least 2 kids per home. And how is that going to impact the Shamrock School with the redistricting that they're doing now? Are these other new students going to be taken into consideration into the redistricting? I think I hit on everything that I'm concerned about. Obviously, if this was happening 30 feet from your backyard, you would probably have the same concerns, but I love the idea of coming out and doing a site visit just to take a peek with your own eyes. I did have a question, though. The residents that live up there now have to bring their garbage down to the corner of Garfield and Cliffside, and I just didn't know if that would have to continue for all the new homes, or if trash would go up there because it's a private way. Do you know?
No idea.
Okay. It just seems like a lot of people bring trash down to the end of the street if that's what's going to happen.
If it's a
Public
public
streets,
street,
they
they'd
get
go up
trash
and collect it.
collection.
If it stays private, they'd have to bring it down.
All right. Those are all my concerns.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Okay. If you could sign that, please, the
Oh, sure.
sheet right there. Thank
Never
you so
thought of
much for
that.
coming up.
But I should have.
Chair, I just have a comment. I know up in North Woburn, some of the households had somebody come in and review their foundations and their buildings prior to all of the lastings, so they would have a record of condition, and that might be something that people should think about.
Which one was that?
The
That's,
North Woburn
yeah,
one?
that was very familiar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there was a lot of cracked foundations.
Yeah.
Yes, Jim.
Do you have the applicant's engineer address the procedures for the blasting, if any, required in this project? What typically are done through the fire department?
I can, but I've got the public coming up at the moment, so
Yeah.
we can have them come back up and address that afterwards. Is there anybody else in public that would like to step right up, please? Give your name, address, and sign that sheet.
My name is Daniel Englander. I'm at 116 Garfield. The one other concern that I have that hasn't been mentioned is my driveway is on Cliffside. So my one concern is the street's going to be ripped up. I don't know how long I'm going to not have access to be able to use my driveway on the street. So that's just one other thing that I have. It'd be good to know like what the schedule is for when it'll be affected, because I'll have to park on the street on Garfield and not use my garage or anything. So yeah, that's all I have to add.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could recommend that when we do conduct a site inspection, if this gentleman's able to attend, he can point this issue out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Just please step right up.
Hi, Craig Siegel. I'm at 15 Bradford Road, which is, I guess, up above this. And I'm sort of concerned about losing the sort of woodlands that we have between their property and our property. It's almost like a wilderness area. It's a small area, but it's like a wilderness area. Where, as was mentioned before, we have coyotes and we have other sort of wildlife that's living back there. And so I would like to see from these plans where 15 Bradford Road is and where that sort of, how far back these lots go in comparison to that, and how much sort of natural space is being eliminated in these plans.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. I'm just going to make a point here and during a public hearing is that many of you come up with questions, concerns that you have. It is not the normal practice to have those answered while you're standing up here. But we do take notes. I'm sure the developer takes notes. The rest of the board takes notes. And at some point, your concerns will be addressed. So Step right up. I-
Hello, my name is Claire Murphy. My address is 124 Garfield Avenue. I grew up at 122 Garfield Avenue. We are direct abutters. And the ledge that we speak of, we are all on the same rock. And when we built our house, it was blasted. In front of my house, we have a chunk of rock that looks like the Prudential rock, and that is all rock. There's no way it is not rock. As a child, we blueberry picked on the rock. I know what I'm talking about. I think that there's going to be issues, certainly with my foundation, perhaps with the rest of our neighbors, I don't know. That's one of my issues. Another issue is the drain off of water, which they've had in the past, running into other people's property. I would like to make very sure that that does not run into ours. The other thing is, we have an awful lot of traffic on up and down Garfield Avenue as of right now. I realize 7 more houses is not going to make a huge difference, but 7 more houses times 2 or 3 cars, and we already have an abundance that speed up and down Garfield. I have called the alderman and asked him to see if he could get a traffic table like they have on 38, which slows the cars down, and I have not heard anything back, but that was just one of the couple of the things. Again, also the schools, I'm sure, will be affected. If there's 4 bedrooms, there's got to be a couple of kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott Jones, Heather's husband, 118 Garfield Avenue. My concern is with the foundation, it seems like we're going to be required to be on notice all the time that there might be a damage to our foundation. And so how much is it going to cost us to have somebody come out ahead of time and come out every time there's an issue with the foundation? So how long is this going to take? 3 years, 4 years? So for 4 years, I'm supposed to have somebody come out and check my foundation? That's my concern.
Anyone else? Okay. How would the board like to proceed here? Claudia?
I think it makes some sense to schedule a site visit, probably sooner rather than later, before it gets to be summer and people, are out and about and won't be able to make their plans work to attend. So I personally would need to see it, and with the various grades staked, and to have the ability to sort of climb around there and figure out what this proposal looks like on the ground as opposed to just on paper, in order to attempt to make the best decision. So it makes sense, perhaps Director Cashel has some ideas as to, what makes sense. We have a next meeting, I believe, in 2 weeks.
Well, that's another issue. We don't have anything scheduled for our next meeting.
Okay.
And I'd just like to continue real quickly, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
As everybody can tell by reading the comments, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to revise these plans. And I talked with the applicant before this meeting this evening, and there's well over a month's worth of work. And for those plans, the revisions to be reviewed by the engineering office and the DPW. Fire, I think, is already squared away. Police they don't have any comments, but engineering-wise and DPW-wise, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to comply with their concerns. And again, Superintendent Duran needs to stake out, or have the applicant stake out, excuse me. And we can prepare this site inspection. I would say the site inspection itself, we'd be safe to schedule before Memorial Day for, say, an evening during the week preceding Memorial Day weekend. And I don't think that'll interrupt with anybody's schedule. So that's what I would suggest, and, you know, it'd be up to the board, what night works best for everybody. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday works great for me, myself, but, you know, if the board can pick out a night, and then we'll schedule that. And we do have to, you know, notice the meeting.
Yes. Well, it would be a public.
Public,
You
oh,
know,
yes,
that's
absolutely.
That is an
Would
issue.
still be invited.
Yeah, they're invited, but site inspections are strictly between, you know, typically, and by statute even, between the applicant and the board that's reviewing the plans. Members of the public can be invited. And in this case, I think it's the wise thing to do. But it's strictly a technical review of the plans, and we're going to see the actual physical environment itself. And one thing I want to caution everybody, if we're going to be walking around in the brush, be dressed for it relative to ticks, because they climb all over you this time of year. So,
Through the chair.
Yes, Claudia.
So it is my understanding that it will be up to the applicant whether the applicant is comfortable, who they invite onto their property. That I do get. And it's up to the board to be comfortable going places that the public can't go. So you see there's a tension there, right? Because we, as a board, we like to be as open and transparent in our process as we can possibly be in order to give our neighbors the ability to see that we're really trying hard to do the best we can, both for the applicant and the neighbors, and make the best decision. So I can't make the applicant say, oh yeah, that's fine, anywhere the planning board goes, the public can go. That is certainly up to the applicant, and then up to the planning board to decide how to handle it based on the applicant's choice. So I'll leave that there. But in terms of us seeing the potential grading for this street, you know, it's pretty important for us to get kind of up close and personal with it, with the stakes. And so what I'm hearing from the director is that the week before Memorial Day is actually next week, amazingly. And that's what you had in mind, right, John?
correct, yeah.
Okay. It is also late, which allows folks who want to come after work not to be terribly inconvenienced, as well as, of course, the planning board who has to come after work. So looking at the schedule, is something like a Thursday evening, the 23rd, workable?
Works for me, but I thought I heard,
Unavailable. That's the only night of the week
That you can't do?
that interferes with stuff, but if I could get out of there, if we could
Okay.
get done with the meeting by 6:30, I'm fine.
Okay, and there's also the Tuesday. I mean, most of us keep Tuesdays generally as free as possible since we're here on every, 2 Tuesdays a month. Does Tuesday, the 21st, work better?
Yeah, so through the chair, I just want to
Yes.
ask the applicant, Attorney Tarby?
Yeah.
Checking our schedule, because one of the issues is,
Yeah.
town's gonna get a survey crew out to the site if it's gonna be staked. You just can't put stakes on the property, so we may need more than the 23rd. Maybe the following week might be better.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I don't want to, that's very important. The staking is one of the main reasons, other than, seeing where all these lots could be, I would want to go. So, Joe, are you thinking to be safe, you would not look at the week prior to Memorial Day?
I think it'd be a tight schedule to get it done by 23rd.
Yeah, if you could do the week after, I think that would be more reasonable.
Okay. So, what is folks', Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and is the Thursday still a problem? Carolyn? Yeah, sorry.
Yes, through the chair. So if we don't have do we have a meeting scheduled for the 28th?
We don't have anything scheduled for that evening right now. We don't have any applications or any continued public hearings.
She's got the,
So perhaps we could use that night for
28th.
a site visit.
Yeah, yep.
30th. I'm good any.
Carolyn, that's brilliant,
28th.
because that's already on my schedule and on everyone's
That
that's
does
sitting
work.
here schedule.
That does work.
Yeah. Joe, is that enough time?
28, 29, 30?
What was the date? Sorry.
28th?
The 28th, so it would
That
be
works.
2 weeks. Do you
Yeah,
think it would
that-
work?
That should work.
Okay. All right, and, you know, I'm certainly hopeful that folks are able to attend, that want to attend.
Does that work, yeah?
John, did you have?
Yeah, I mean, the important thing to keep in mind for the project engineer is that, you know, we'll need someone to clearly interpret what the plans reflect in the field. Because, I mean, everybody realizes when you look at the plan, there's substantial grade changes proposed with this subdivision. So if you can depict that as clearly as possible so everybody can envision it, that'll really help out. One thing over the years, I've seen some subdivisions, it's like, what? How did you guys approve that? Not in this city, but in other places I've been. I mean, just unbelievable stuff that you don't see on paper. But when it becomes reality, it's pretty drastic. And, you know, one of the things is, and there are plenty of examples in Woburn, where lots are approved, and you have serious grades involved, and the backyard of the house is right up against a cliff. You know, it's almost indescribable as far as it being a habitable space. You know, and it's rather horrendous that they actually build houses on properties like that. So the severity of grade for a lot of house lots, I mean, they'll go to any extent in the world to build right up into a cliff face. You know, and it's really not a reasonable type of development
Okay.
when you really take the whole picture of things into regard.
So through the chair?
Yes.
In terms of where folks can safely park, whenever we do these site visits, that's an issue. So if there can be some communication, like where we should, you know, actually gather, that isn't going to impede traffic flow or block people's driveways or things of this nature, that would be helpful too.
There's ample parking at the top of the extension right now. It's all kind of flat and gravelly, so there should be plenty of room to park up there.
Okay.
And if I may ask a question, for the scope of the staking, just to see if you were envisioning it, we have stationing on our plans here. You can see 150, 200. If we put a stake, say, every 50 feet, starting at our property line, and just illustrating the cut at that elevation, so if we were at, say, we'll have a mark at station 400, the proposed grade of 165, the existing grade is 178. So you'd have a station 400 minus 8 feet. Or did you want something more substantial than that for the staking? I can mark it on a plan too to show you where the stakes are.
So the sign would say it's 8 feet beneath this sign?
Yeah, it would say minus 8 feet or plus 8 feet, depending on if we're cutting or filling.
I think we'd be.
Jim, what do you think?
Chair?
Yes.
I think that's typical, for your typical C equals whatever the cut is.
Okay, thank you.
That worked? Okay.
All right, and then I guess the last thing is time. I mean, we have our own meetings for 7. Is that an appropriate time in order to, you know, at that time, you know, in 2 weeks, so it's going to even be lighter at 7 than it is now. So the question is, what time works for folks?
I would say we could do it at 7. Like, right now, it's 10 minutes of 8,
We'd be done by now.
and it's still, we should be done by now, but it's still light out now, and in 2 weeks, it'll be a little bit lighter.
Okay.
So I would say, a suggestion is we just do it at 7 o'clock, what we normally,
Yeah.
when we would have a normal meeting.
Yeah, that'll definitely work.
Great.
Yes, Jim?
I think we ought to move it up a half hour, only because the last site visit we did in East Woburn ran a good hour and a half.
James is pushing for 6:30.
That was a little bit more walking around than I envisioned for this, but
Yeah, 5:30 or 6 works best for my clients.
I'm sorry, what's?
Yeah.
5:30 or 6 works best for my clients.
What do people think of 6? Does that work?
I'm fine with
6?
Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6?
Kevin?
6.
6.
Yeah, okay,
6 is good.
all right.
I would suggest wearing light-colored khakis.
And hiking
The
boots.
ticks show up better.
Yeah, and hiking boots, okay. All right, and just one last question, in terms of setting my GPS, obviously, there's a variety of ways that could work, but what would actually get us all there?
What address?
Yeah,
What address gets us to the right spot?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
4 Cliffside should get
4
you there.
Cliffside, okay.
Thank you.
Because you don't want lost planning board members, you want us all there at the right
If you're
time.
going down a steep hill, you've gone too far.
Okay, got it.
That's Garfield, Mount Misery.
All right, do we need a motion for this?
Probably. I'll make a motion, without repeating myself, for this
conduct a-
meeting, 2 weeks from tonight, at 6 o'clock at 4 Cliffside Ave, that we will meet for an on-site.
Okay,
second.
second by Jim. All those in favor? 6-4, 0 opposed.
So it's a continuance of the public hearing.
It will be continued to, yes, well, that would be the next motion, would be to continue the public hearing till,
Well, we would probably want to do that in,
Include it all in the same
motion?
motion.
Oh, it was included, wasn't it?
was.
yeah,
Yes.
it
My
was. I just,
recollection, yeah.
absolutely, I was just making sure that we continue the
My
public
bad.
hearing
Yes, yes.
to
That's what I thought Dave said in the first place. Continue
Absolutely.
the public hearing,
6 PM
site visit.
on May,
Yes.
what is the date?
That would be 28th.
8th,
May 28th.
at 6 PM
6
at
PM.
4 Cliffside Terrace for a site visit. Right, okay, just making
So
sure.
the public hearings continue to the site visit date?
Yes,
Yes.
that was, I was just making sure that was part of my colleague's motion.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We may have an error here, so I just want to flag it. So this is a formal public hearing. It's been advertised
Yes.
for this evening in this specific location. People that are here this evening may not attend the public hearing, the site inspection. So they would be unaware of the continued public hearing from the site inspection, unless we're coming back here to formally meet after the site inspection and then continue the public hearing date specific to another
Sure.
date.
So, through the chair, what we've done in the past when we're in a site visit, but we're not coming back to meet, is that at the site visit, we take a vote to continue the public hearing again to a date certain.
However, not all the people that are attending here are necessarily going to be in attendance at the site inspection.
That
So-
is true.
So they wouldn't be informed. See, a site inspection, if I could just, Mr. Chair, it's for technical review purposes. It's not to conduct a public hearing. So we're not going to be taking testimony from the public. We're just conducting a site inspection. And again, I think you're familiar with this. It's a technical review. It's not, in Massachusetts, it's not supposed to include the public. It's just the applicant describing for us to be able to visualize the project that's being presented in the plans. So it's a technical inspection of the physical parts of the plan, the property. And then, at that point in time, I'd say right now, we'd be better off date-specific, picking a public hearing date that the board will further review in a formal public hearing. And, knowing how much they have to revise the plans, it's at least a month out from here that we're talking for them to be able to revise the plans get them into the department heads that have to further comment on those plans and report to the board for the next meeting. So I'm suggesting either the first meeting in June or the second meeting in June for the planning board to consider continuing the public hearing date specific. And then that way, we don't have to re-advertise.
Through the chair, so if I'm understanding, John,
Yep.
your advice is that we informally show up, we say in open session that we are going to reconvene on this, not in a public hearing context, but in a site visit context on May 28th, but then take a vote right now to continue the actual public hearing until a date certain in the chambers. That's your advice?
Yes, that's my advice. And one more point with the site inspection, you're not supposed to deliberate, as a group. You're taking in information, but you're not deliberating on the project, because that would be a violation of the public hearing law. So you're just absorbing the information being presented by the applicant. And then when you come back in a formal public hearing setting, that's when you're allowed to deliberate. Because you're presenting, you want to make sure the public has all of the information and they're hearing that firsthand from this body in a formal public hearing setting. And a public hearing setting in the field, that's not what that's about. It's just about gathering physical information about the property and the project.
Okay, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
And so if, we of course are able to ask questions.
Yes, yeah, you just can't make any decisions,
Of course not.
because it would be outside of the public hearing forum.
Okay, all right, so then,
We didn't vote on
2 weeks.
motion, right?
Yes, we did.
We did?
Yes, we did. So we need to withdraw somebody, whatever.
yeah, why don't we do a do-over?
Yes.
Can I just suggest, Dave, that it's just a vote to conduct the inspection at such and such a date. And then it's a vote of the board for date specific to continue this hearing. And then that alleviates the board from having to send out abutter notices again and advertise in the paper.
Okay, so I make a motion that we have a site visit.
So first, I think we need to
Vote to
Draw.
undo the first.
undo the first one, right? So do you want to, someone has to make a motion to reconsider their vote? I
I'll
will,
make the motion to reconsider my vote and
motion.
motion.
And I'll second.
All those in favor of Dave reconsidering his vote and the motion? All in favor? 6 votes.
Okay, so
None against.
now we're back.
Now,
Okay.
we're going to make a motion for a site visit on May 28th at 6 a.m. at 4
PM.
p.m., sorry. I get up early every day. At 4 Cliffside Terrace for a site review, period.
Dave, I'll be there at 6 a.m. if you want.
Don't challenge me, because Jim knows I'll be there.
All right,
We get a second on
I'll
that?
second that motion.
Okay, motion by Dave, have a site plan, site review, visit. Second by Claudia, all those in favor? 6-4-0 against. Now I think if someone would like to make a motion to continue this public hearing, the next meeting after the 28th would be June 11th, I
I
think.
said the second meeting.
Joe, do you,
Second.
which meeting would you like to continue the public hearing
I
to?
just spoke with Carlton. We think we can be ready for June 11th.
Okay,
So could I have a motion to continue the public hearing
To June 11th.
till June 11th?
and I will second
By
that.
Dave, second by Claudia. All those in favor? 6-4, none against.
Okay,
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
thank
you.
you. Me too. I'm up.
Okay, up next, without a doubt, one of our favorite subjects, Sherman Terrace subdivision. Update on progress towards completion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Attorney James Giuliano for the record, Giuliano Law Group, 607 Main Street, Woburn, on behalf of the applicant. Since our last meeting, we did make some progress. I did submit electronically, which I do have, which I apologize, 7 copies. I thought I had 8, but I do have 7 copies of revised plans that just show what we're proposing for the revisions, which entails obviously removing the existing soil and to restabilize the area. I think we discussed that at the last hearing. I can submit these for the record if the board chooses, or if you have an electronic copy, that's fine as well. But
Is that just the red line version that you emailed?
it is.
We have that.
Okay, perfect. I didn't know if anybody wanted. So. You're welcome. So the plan, the revised plan from Mark Slager did show us obviously removing the 645 square feet of turf stabilization to remove that and replace it with the perma-turf that we discussed that was H20 rated for loading capacity, which I think the board agreed that that was sufficient. We have to do some curb cutting and just remove the curb and sort of slide it over because of where we're going to be putting the new perma-turf. The easement, it looks like, is going to have to be moved a little bit. Obviously, that is at the peril of the existing homeowner that is there now. That is out of our control. As I mentioned to you last meeting, the only way to remove an easement is either through extinguishment of non-necessity, or if the parties agree to do that. It is not a unilateral extinguishment. So that's something that obviously we're going to need approval from the homeowner. So that's our plan. We are in progress with that as we speak. The wall that is existing is going to maintain. We're just going to slide over the perma-turf and restabilize the area. We do have a question for engineering and DPW with regards to the staking. I think if you remember correctly, the last meeting we discussed the stone bound, if it's going to be a stake, a metal sort of railroad rod or stake, or if a stone bound is going to be necessary. It all depends on what comes back from engineering, if they believe that obviously a plow is going to nick it and remove it from where it is. So we're still waiting to hear back from engineering as to what they think is sufficient on that, and we'll get back to you with regards to that issue. I did get in touch, we were able to get in touch with Mr. Charay through some communication. I can tell you that I feel a little bit optimistic about what our conversations were. He's being brought back up to Massachusetts for some surgery, which is positive. I think whatever was going on back in Florida was not working. So he is being brought up to Massachusetts for some surgery. We believe that that should be successful. I think as far as realistic timeframes with Mr. Charay's condition, I think possibly an extension till end of October would be realistic. Obviously, it would be at the discretion of the board, but that's what we're feeling at this point in time. And I think that's realistic based on the fact that I can get the easement moved, switched, amended, and have Mr. Charay in a backhoe to remove the soil and put back a more stabilized condition. So that being said, hopefully at this point I feel we're moving forward, but I will certainly entertain any questions the board has.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, in the planning board, in regard to what Attorney Giuliano just said, I was contacted today by a respected member of the community. I'll leave unnamed, but that person respectfully requests that the board take into consideration that Bill Charay does have physical impairments with his back. He has serious surgery being scheduled in Massachusetts as opposed to Florida. He's coming up here for the surgery. He'll be incapacitated for quite a while in recovering from the surgery, and they respectfully request through his representative that the board truly take into consideration extending the completion of this issue, this matter, and having it rectified by the end of October, and to come back before the board with a finished product and everything worked out. And as the attorney pointed out, there's a private party involved. They have to negotiate this, and you know how that can take some time to get that squared away. I did actually go up there today. I had to see what we're talking about. I finally carved out time and went up there. It's not that far away, but, all in all, everybody's been up there, I would imagine, on their own. It's a pretty idyllic subdivision to begin with, and it's a well-established subdivision. And, in this particular case, there are two brand-new homes built off of Sherman Place. So you have Sherman Terrace. You really couldn't, in my opinion, ask for a nicer side roadway off of the main feeding subdivision. So, physically, everything is in, brand-new condition. The roadway surface, the houses, everything is just really an idyllic neighborhood setting. There's nothing really physically wrong with this picture that's up there, the existence of it. So, it's not impeding anybody's access. It's not interfering with any aesthetic values people may have. It's purely a nice finished product that is there. So that's my take on it. You may want to go up there and actually look at it yourselves if you haven't. But, I really don't see, a problem up here, other than there are a few things out of place by inches and several feet. But, I don't really think we should be interested in tearing up the neighborhood, over this matter. You got to see it, maybe to believe it yourself, but that's my opinion.
Okay. Jim?
What, the applicant's gonna be back in town or back from his surgery in October. Having back surgery, I believe it is, that obviously he's not gonna be the person performing the work. The work that's being done here is minimal at best. Other than the easement, which would take a little time, I don't understand where the delay of having, whether it's this contractor, an applicant, getting an outside vendor to do the work on his behalf, get it behind him. I mean, this is closing in on 4 years right now. I understand the health concerns, and I feel towards that. We've heard this earlier, but this is a habit-forming thing with this applicant, unfortunately, not just a subdivision. Okay? I really think that there needs to be addressed a timeline. I don't feel comfortable giving 6 months again. I'm looking at this work here. Other than the easement, probably less than a week's work.
Mr. Chairman, if I may make a comment to Mr. Callahan's. So 2 points on that, and I should have clarified. So Mr. Charest is coming up, I believe, in the next week or so for surgery. So we're looking to have either him, and I should have mentioned too, we are still looking for other options for somebody to take his place in lieu of Mr. Charest. But in the worst-case scenario is Mr. Charest, and this is based on our conversations through his representatives and him and the realtors, et cetera, that Mr. Charest does the surgery in June and recovers and is able to hopefully, again, finish by the end of October. I think that's the plan, and I probably wasn't clear on that, but that's our plan as of right now. So I understand your point, and it's well taken. Again, to couple with my second point, I think we're still trying to get somebody to sort of help and get in that backhoe to see if somebody can do it in the meantime, just in case he's not able to recover as quick as we hope. So that's, but your points are well taken.
Okay, what would we like to do?
Through the
Claudia?
chair. Is this a situation where there are abutters being inconvenienced or folks, as sometimes happens, concerned residents that live there that the subdivision isn't being completed and that there's, missing bits and pieces that are impacting their lives. Is that any part of this situation?
It is not at this point. If, as the director mentioned, everything is grass at this point, everything is vegetated. We will be disturbing that area to rebuild it, which is fine, but at this point, it is not. There's lawn that's been established, there's landscaping, the retaining wall is up, it's stabilized, et cetera, so no.
Okay. And what is the date? October?
I would suggest, at their request, and it's just for the board's consideration, the first meeting in November would be the most appropriate relative to the timeframe they're requesting the board to take into consideration.
So to enlarge time for the subdivision to be completed to October 31st? I mean, does that make sense, or to a
No, it
date
does.
certain in November?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so I'd make a motion to extend the time to complete this subdivision until October 31st, 2024.
Motion made by Claudia to extend the subdivision till October 31st, 2024. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second by David. All those in favor? 6-4-0 opposed.
Thank you very much for your patience. Just as a side note, when I hear back from engineering with regards to the bounds, I will submit a letter to the board as to what they recommend, and then obviously, even though there's no public hearing that we will need to come in front of the board with, we can certainly correspond through letters and emails and keep you abreast of what's going on in the meantime, so we have no problem doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the planning director's update.
Do you guys want the finale or summarization?
Summarization.
Thank you.
Finale summarization.
If you want the full-scale presentation, the mayor and I did meet with the city council. If you watched that, or you have the opportunity, you may want to watch it. But I did give the full-scale presentation of what is going on relative to the city moving towards compliance with the so-called MBTA 3A, non-age-restricted multifamily housing statute and associated guidelines. So for this evening's staff report, I did attach, and again, everybody received this electronically, the actual chapter and verse, Chapter 40A, Section 3A, the actual statutory language that every MBTA community is involved in. They've either acted on it already, or they're in the midst of acting on it, or they've decided negatively on it. But, it's probably the hottest topic for 177 communities that are designated as MBTA communities. And then what I also gave to board members as an attachment to the staff report is a copy of the proposed zoning amendment. It's a draft, and this is a draft that results from pretty much a template of the zoning ordinance amendments that MBTA communities are either entertaining for adoption or other action, or have already voted to adopt. So the draft that you have is a drafted zoning ordinance particular to Woburn. And being familiar with the zoning ordinance presently consists of sections 1 through 33. So the obvious new section involved with the MBTA zoning amendment would be new section 34. And then part of that zoning amendment is the potential adoption of an overlay district or multiple overlay districts that comply with the 3A statute. Now, just as a follow-up from last week's presentation that the mayor and I gave to the city council, I'm continuing to work with the city's consultant, and that's a consultant that's paid for and assigned pretty much by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, formerly known as DHCD. And the gentleman's name that I've been working with is Jeff Davis, and he's with Horsley and Witten Planning Group. Right now, Mr. Davis is working diligently with his planning team through clear instructions from the city relative to developing an overlay district that does comply with 3A. And right now, it appears, and I said, again, this is just in draft, but, you know, what is appearing to be a consensus that's growing is for the overlay district to remain on the east side of the rail line, the commuter rail line, with the epicenter of the overlay district being Anderson Station. And the minimum acreage that Woburn has to plan for in accordance with the statute is 50 acres. And that can be 50 acres of totally developed land or undeveloped land that's developable. But again, I got to make it clear, and hopefully, if anybody has any questions about this, please ask them, so that, you know, we do remain clear with the public that is watching and listening to all of this. And we are trying to do the best job we can in compliance with the law, but also in the best interests of the city of Woburn and its residents. So Mr. Davis is right now crunching the numbers. He should be done with several alternative overlay district boundaries with an associated density that does provide for the theoretical 2,631 units. Again, we're not required to come up with an overlay district that is going to result in the building of 2,631 units, but rather it has the capacity, in accordance with the density provisions of the statute, to allow for that many units. It may be 100 years or may never result in that type of number of units, but it's all about the acreage and the developable acreage that theoretically could house 2,631 units in accordance with the overlay district provisions that are being designed for Woburn zoning amendment-wise. That's the spiel for tonight. And I'll know for our next meeting. Well, the other thing, the council did defer this specifically to their liaison committee. So they're probably going to do some work, continuing to work with myself and the mayor, and, you know, work on this, and ultimately producing a draft zoning ordinance, and again, overlay district or overlay districts, that this planning board, under Mass General Law, will conduct a public hearing for and make a recommendation to adopt or not to the city council. And then the city council will hold their public hearing, and whatever results from their public hearing would then be entertained by the mayor for his signature or not. And the deadline to conduct all of this work and get it all done is between today and December 31st of this year. And there's no pending legislation, and there's no pending guidance to extend that date. So we have until December 31st of this year. It is plenty of time, and I want to make sure everybody understands that that is plenty of time to make sure that we either comply or whatever the final outcome is, working with the state over the next few months, you know, leading up to that deadline. If anybody has any questions, I'll help, hopefully I can answer them for you.
David?
So, those of you that know me know I'm naturally suspicious. If this isn't phase one, I mean, we all know the Supreme Court ruled some years ago that you can do takings for the best interest of society, and private land was involved in some of those takings. And I'm just concerned, we have to do this is great, the way you outlined it, John says, we're meeting the requirements of the law, but there's nothing that says we have to tell anybody to do anything. Is there any sense that it's somewhere down the line, there's part two to this, where they say, okay, now that we have everybody established, 175 communities established this, we're now gonna require you to start making people build things. I mean, I don't know how that would happen, but I didn't think this would happen. So, you know, I know it's my usual paranoid self, but do you know, John, if there is anything that's, you know, this is it, this is the beginning, the end, and the...
Yeah, you know, through experience and, you know, always questioning what's going on, I don't think anybody can accurately predict what the federal government of this country or the state government of this Commonwealth is going to propose upon the people. I always believe firmly, and I've been a student of government and history of this country for my entire life, and I always thought this country, the laws of this country percolate in a perfect world of this governance, form of governance that we have, that laws percolate best from ground level and work their way up. We've experienced, anybody paying attention to current affairs over the last several decades, you know, more and more, this country, especially at the federal level, loves to pass laws without going through legislative review. You know, we've more and more become a country that mandates law through executive order. And that's not how the framers of this country organized things. They created this masterpiece of governance with many people providing input and people of, you know, major intellect, you know, debating for months and years at a time and taking the best from the past, you know, the best history of what Greek civilization provided for us and what Roman civilization provided for us, and especially Roman law, which most of that is still practiced today, and it's still precedent law. It's all based on logic and reason. And, you know, we just don't experience that today in our government, and there's not enough intelligent debate, in my own humble opinion, about the direction we're going, and it's not a direction that is percolating from the needs of the people, but percolating from the demands of the top. So who knows what the federal government or the state government of Massachusetts has in store for us, you know, and unless people participate and speak their mind about what's going on, you know, we're not going to be any better off than if we remain colonialists of Great Britain. So we wouldn't be the free people we are today if we didn't speak up and get involved and get concerned about what's going on in our government. And, you know, the way things are, we don't know what they're going to ask us to do or demand of us to do. So that's my 2 cents.
Short version, who knows?
Yeah.
All right. I had to ask.
Great question. I appreciate so much being able to express myself, too. Thank you.
Also on here, John, there was something about the master plan.
Yes, oh, yeah, yep. You know, it came to my attention over the last 2 months, I think it's almost going on 3 now that I've been back in planning director position. In 2015, after a lot of great work that was done by the city, and you know, all the work that was done to update the master plan, and it has the title of Woburn Plan for Progress, and then dash master plan. We couldn't find any evidence that it was formally adopted, and by state statute, it really needs to be adopted by this planning board, so that we in the planning department seeking state grants can reference that master plan update, the 2015 to 2025 master plan update. That's an important part. And it does have to be formally adopted, to be formally recognized, and it has to be delivered to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, too. So to represent Woburn's official master plan. And I did include the statute itself in the language, and all of the boxes were checked by the city relative to everything that needs to be included in a master plan update. The only missing tooth of all of this is evidence that the planning board voted to adopt the plan. And we couldn't find anything. Lindsay Higgins wasn't able to find any official action that was taken within the city council records, and Karen couldn't find any records that a formal vote of this board, which is essential and required, if that was taken. We just couldn't find it. So I'm recommending that when this board is comfortable enough with the contents of it, and I've gone over this with the mayor, but when this board feels comfortable enough to move in the direction of taking a formal vote, that would be not just nice, it would be, statutorily correct. And then, it does have a date through 2025. Master plans are supposed to be updated, typically every 10 years. So, it's effective through 2025, but it's in accordance with statute, it will be effective through 2035. And we can, as a community, amend it as needed by statute or needed with things changing. We could change our own master plan, again, in accordance with the state statute, which is, as I included and referenced it, let's see, where did I reference it? Section 81D, and that's chapter 40A, which has probably the most subsections of any chapter in Massachusetts law. But 81D is Master Plan Economic Development Supplement, so that's been amended. That particular section was recently amended, emphasizing a community's master plan has to be updated to include, its economic plan, economic development, and the projections therefore, and amending its zoning ordinances. And Woburn did that already, especially in regard to smart growth and the adoption of the overlay district 40R that exists along Commerce Way. So there is an incredible amount of work and acknowledgements within the document at the beginning that I did reference in my staff report. It's just, Claudia, I'd like to defer to you at this point. How would you like to proceed with this?
Through the chair. All of us were here in 2015 that are present, right? So there's not anybody, obviously Mike is missing, but everyone here was here in 2015. I remember the master plan. I remember how hard people worked. It's unfortunate that we never actually took a vote, but I would be comfortable putting the matter to a vote today if my fellow board members are comfortable, and just getting it over with and getting it done. And can we approve it, nunc pro tunc, which means back to 2015?
Yes.
Okay, I'd make that motion.
And I'll second.
Because it was just an oversight.
Indeed.
More than anything.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's my motion. It's been seconded.
Motion by Claudia, second by Dave. All those in favor? All those opposed? 6-0, carried.
All right, that's a majority vote, so I think we're good.
I appreciate that so much. Now we can reference in all these grant proposals and get it off to the executive office.
Indeed.
I remember working on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Big meetings and stuff.
It's certainly a surprise that we never actually took the vote, but
And I do want to recognize Karen's due diligence on all of this.
thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Sharon.
She found the document and dug it out. And we reviewed it.
And it's good for 10 years, right?
Yes. Yep.
I don't know if I'll still be here then.
None of us are promised another day.
None of us,
Try. I mean, really, yeah.
none of us
Day
know.
at a time.
Okay.
All right, up next, John, is that it for the update?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Up next is the minutes from the April 23rd meeting.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Motion by Claudia to approve the April 23rd minutes as submitted, second by Carolyn. All those in favor? Nope,
abstain.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 to 0.
Yep.
Carries.
2 abstains?
2 abstains.
2 abstains.
Right, because you weren't here.
That's right.
Okay.
Is there anything else that needs to come up before this board at this moment?
So we're good with the site inspection, and that will be the only course of business for that evening.
Yes.
And then our next regular meeting will be the second Tuesday in June.
And that, does that have business at the moment?
Not at the moment.
Okay, well, we can keep it on the books and then we can decide how to handle
Oh,
that.
excuse me, it does have business. Public hearing was continued, date
Oh,
specific.
I'm sorry, of course, sorry.
Gotta watch my memory, it lapses
And mine,
quickly.
and mine too. Luckily,
soon
Kevin
we
is sitting right
forget.
here to keep us in line, so
And
thank
you
you.
have some signatures, we have some.
All right, well,
Okay, seeing no other business.
being no other business, I would make a motion to adjourn at 8:31.
Motion by Claudia to adjourn at 8:31. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Dave. All those in favor? All those opposed? 5-1, carries.
Right?
Jim was opposed.
But apparently folks want to watch the Bruins, so I'm not gonna,